Welcome back, everybody. We had a nice little week last week with that terrific interview that Tim did. That resurrected interview from a few years ago with Neil and the boys about their film.
Yeah,
and,
Sabu. Funny how things
come back around.
It's just so funny.
But in the meantime, I had a hell of a day about a week ago, where it was just a generally kind of a down day. A lot of bad news from people, and I'm sitting there at night watching Mulan with my daughter and my wife. My daughter's been looking forward to Disney's live-action Mulan, and right in the damn middle of the movie, I get a little text on my phone: Chadwick Boseman dead.
Oh my gosh!
And I had to leave the room because I started to cry. I physically started to cry. That just came like a bolt from the blue. And then you spent a whole day doing radio and television, I think, talking about him.
Yeah.
Tim,
out of nowhere.
Tim, talk about it.
Chadwick, first of all, it's funny. If you've been at this as long as you and I have been at this, Wade, every now and again, we get to see an actor's, director, an actor's entire career happen, the whole thing. There's a moment where there is no Chadwick Boseman, and then suddenly there's this guy called Chadwick Boseman.
I know,
and everybody's talking about. And that moment for him was 42. But if you had been paying attention a little bit before that, I caught Chadwick Boseman. He caught my eye. A couple of movies. Played Floyd Little in that movie, The Express.
Yeah.
He's really good in that. Really good in that movie. Caught my eye in that movie. His first professional acting job, All My Children, 2003. And I talked about this on the radio. He got fired from that job. Chadwick Boseman got fired because he went to the producers and he's like, look, this guy you got me playing, he's an amalgamation of a bunch of black stereotypes, and we need to complicate this guy. We need to do something with this guy. And they pushed it around a little bit, but ultimately he was a bit too much trouble, so they fired him. Hired Michael B. Jordan.
I think that's so funny.
Utterly out. It's so funny to pick up where that role is. But it said something about Chadwick, the kind of career that he wanted to have, the kind of folks that he wanted to play. And once he got that part, in 42, he played nothing but heroes from that point forward.
Yeah.
In one way or another. And in that short career, man, just blazed a path, didn't he?
He did.
Right through T'Challa and Black Panther. I had a moment, and I know you read that Ryan Coogler piece that I want you to talk about, but I had a moment where I went and I saw Chadwick give the commencement address at Howard University, his alma mater, where he took a directing degree, by the way, not acting, directing degree. And he gave the commencement speech in 2018. They gave him an honorary doctorate, and he was standing there in 2018. This is 2 years after that diagnosis.
Yeah.
And he's doing the Black Panther campaign. He looks fantastic, and he looks strong. And he gave this absolutely funny, but extremely exhilarating, inspiring commencement speech to his fellow Howard University grads. And I think about him standing there 2 years into that diagnosis.
Yeah.
Wade, my wife and Bridget,
yeah.
and so many people in your family. So we know this intimately.
Yeah.
Anyway, you said it before. That's a hero.
The thing, we look back now, and it's how we're now rewriting things in our head, and we're, you look back, for example, this clip that's been circulating of him on the Black Panther tour, where he talks about meeting a couple of kids with cancer, and he sits there with all his castmates, and he chokes up and he breaks down. And you look back on that and you're like, of course he is, because he just got his he's had his diagnosis for 2 years right there.
Yeah.
He's 2 years in. He's probably 1 or 2 surgeries in. He's been on chemo.
Yeah.
And no one knew. And that's the thing. And Coogler even says, we didn't know. Nobody knew. He kept it private. He kept it quiet. And you got to wonder, okay, so the first thing is to get a diagnosis like that, and then to double down on your career most people would say, better put the career on pause. I got to step away. I got to focus on my cure. I got to focus on my health, on my illness. He got the diagnosis and he turned it up.
Yeah.
He turned it up and he made 4 Marvel films. Those are big movies. That's not a Woody Allen movie. That's not walk and talk.
That's work.
That's work. Those are physical, demanding films. Even when the stuntman is wearing your outfit and doing the stunts, there are close-ups. There are other scenes where you are physically involved, and you still, you got to cut away to the stunts, but you got to cut away from something, and the something you cut away from is physically demanding. And he made 4 of those big movies, those long schedule movies, those traveling movies on planes. I mean, and then to balance that out with cancer treatment and surgeries, and to keep your physical condition up, because he's buff in those movies.
Yeah.
Your body's working extra hard to build and maintain that muscle. Is astonishing. I mean, that's a work ethic that I am suddenly awed by. It inspires me, and it makes me sad, so sad at the same time. But the Coogler piece, what's so beautiful about that is that Coogler says, we didn't know, but I'll tell you, he says, I didn't know if I was making a good movie, but Chadwick did. And that says a great deal, too, about how much those movies rely on him, on that character, on what he brought, that the energy he brought as an actor carried those movies. Sometimes it's the energy of the director. Sometimes the director has to put everybody on his shoulders or her shoulders and carry the movie. In this case, Chadwick put the director and the production on his shoulders. Chadwick made those movies.
Yeah.
And so, there's this piece that ran the other day that Disney's now trying to figure out what to do, going forward, because they had Black Panther 2 all kind of planned and ready to go. And you know what? My advice: don't.
It's not like those Batmans. I know what if we had like 4 or 5 Batmans now or whatever. Nobody died.
Let him. He owns that character.
It's not like those. I think we've had 2 or 3 Deadpools. It's not like that. It's a different circumstance.
He owns that character. Let him own it. Retire that jersey. And somebody else brought up something to me too, which is, you know what? His sister was introduced in the movies, and in the comics, she becomes a Black Panther at a certain point.
Yeah.
So, no, you know what? Take it in that direction if you got to.
He would love that. He would love that. I know that he would, as the sort of gentleman. I know that he would love that. Look, if you're a noted actor, you don't want to go anywhere near that.
Yeah.
If you're an already established, noted, Will Smith, I don't know who it would be. I'm pulling names out of my butt, but you know what I mean. Wesley Snipes, you don't want to go anywhere near that.
No.
If you're an up and comer, the weight of that, the criticism will be so, the comparisons, you know what I mean. That's all you'll ever have. You'll have to deal with that. So it's the sort of thing of where you're gonna have to let that go for a while now, and making that pivot that somebody suggested, that you just suggested. That's just about the only way to get that done. And I do want to, because I want to see the people from that part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and all the other characters, Lupita Nyong'o's character and the Night and all of that. I do want to continue to see those characters in this Marvel Cinematic Universe, but that's the way you get there. So I hope that they're sharp enough to pick up on that notion.
I hope so too. I mean, I know they were going to go with the, they were going to pivot to the female Thor angle soon, which I would recommend they not do, because that's one of the dumbest things they've ever done in the comics, and I can't imagine that working in the movies, especially if they try to do it with Natalie Portman. It's not going to work. But but to do it with the Black Panther, because it is a hereditary role, right? His dad was the Black Panther, and he was, and go to the sister. It's the idea of the hereditary hero and heroine, that makes sense. So I certainly hope they do that, and I hope they leave that character alone and retire that jersey, because it should belong to him. So very, very sad day. Loss of an amazing talent in his prime. It's like a James Dean, Bruce Lee level tragedy. And he was, in many respects, he was like Brando and Meryl Streep all rolled into one, right? He had that chameleon-like ability to just fold himself into a part.
Well, here we have Thurgood Marshall and some of the other roles doing James Brown.
Brown.
Here we have another situation where, for the better or for the worst of it, he will live a youthful age. in
Yeah.
our in the zeitgeist, in our minds, in our hearts forever. He'll always be young
Yeah.
and beautiful, like Marilyn, like James, and he'll always be T'Challa.
Forever young.
Yeah.
Forever young. Well, in other news, before we get down onto some titles, we were all excited to see the teaser come out of England on for the Batman, Matt's film. I was very excited to see it. I'd like to believe that it was my performance in Night Work, his first USC short, that inspired Batman, because I was really good as a cat burglar. So I'd like to believe that it was my performance way back when that
I love
inspired this, but of course we know it wasn't.
it. I don't know.
But nonetheless, Pattinson just came down with COVID, so it's shut down again, and I think that's distressing.
Yeah,
Um,
and that's I mean, and dude, how did it look on the in the production? Okay, fine, you know, some lighting guys, some okay, but Pattinson.
I know the star.
I mean, what the fuck are you guys doing over there?
It's a good question. I don't know. That's a weird one. Like literally, Batman came down with COVID. I don't know.
He's young, he's healthy, he's gonna be fine. But I just don't understand what the hell. What kind of a
Yeah.
bubble is that? What kind of a bubble is that? That's a crap
I don't know.
bubble.
It's a crappy bubble. And then even weirder. Now that movie's not going to get canceled. There's no conceivable way Warner Brothers is pulling the plug on that. But Amazon just pulled the plug on their Cortez miniseries with that had been written by Steve Zalian years ago. Spielberg producing. Javier Bardem was going to star as Cortez, and they just killed the whole thing. And that thing shot a few days before the pandemic really hit, and then they suspended it. And it feels to me now like they're just saying, okay, let's just save the money. It's not worth really revisiting.
Yeah.
That makes me sad, but I hope that thing resurrects somewhere, because that's a really, really good project.
Well, you gotta if a production is gonna incur the expenses that it costs to shoot during this pandemic, everything is, what do they say? It's it's tripling up the costs, is what I've heard some people say.
Right. Yeah.
And you have to know that you're making something that's going to have a real serious return on it. Now, we already know we're not going to get box office returns, relatively speaking.
Right.
Although Tenet is doing fantastic in Europe.
It is made $50 million during a pandemic. That's amazing.
Decent numbers, and the spotty around here in the United States. But of course, we're not even open yet here in the
True.
Here in Southern California. But you got to know that you're going to be able to get that money back. So those receipts, have to justify the cost. That Cortez movie, even with Javier Bardem, I don't know.
True.
I don't know.
True. It's true. I mean, I want to see it, but yeah, 5 hours of location jungle shooting in Central America. Yeah, it's that's Werner Herzog territory there. Buddy.
Yeah, and all you stand to win is an Emmy.
Yeah.
So,
good point.
There you go, baby.
Well, we're gonna dive into some product here, some discs. We got a bunch of 4K stuff this week, and we're giving away 4 of them. So the one we're not giving away is the DC Universe movie Superman: Man of Tomorrow, and the 4K DC Universe stuff is actually pretty fun. It's always really well conceived. I wish it were better animated. I kind of, the scripts of these things really have gotten to a really fine-tuned place where I wish that they spent a little bit more time making the animation up to par with everything else. But nonetheless, still good stuff. And the Superman animated stuff has never been particularly brilliant, but this one's pretty good. It's really very, very traditional Superman stuff. It's got Lobo in it. Parasite, the alien villain, is on call as well. I mean, it's a lot of really fun traditional stuff with Superman, and all kind of set in a futuristic environment that contrasts kind of nicely with the traditional Superman. So, yeah, if you've been collecting these DC Universe movies, this is a good 4K. And then Warner Brothers has given us 4 other absolutely sweet 4Ks, and we are giving away 1 of each. So I'm going to take them one at a time. Send us an email. All these emails have to go to gods@digigods.com or gods@cinegods.com. And name and address in the body of the email, and make sure we get these by September 20th. I'm going to push this way out because a lot of people are having a hard time kind of catching up on a lot of the shows. So September 20th is the drop dead date by which we have to get these. And if you're a winner, we'll let you know the evening of September 21st. So September 20th is the drop dead date. September 21st, we'll send you an email if you're a winner. And send it to gods@digigods.com or gods@citygods.com. The first one is 4K of the Goonies. And with Stranger Things 4 coming up, The Goonies is getting all kinds of attention again because it's kind of one of the movies that inspired it. Tim, how fondly do you remember The Goonies?
Deeply and most profoundly. Of course, I was an adult when The Goonies came out. That shows you what a goofy, what a goofy 20-something-year-old I happen to be. But
Same
yeah,
here.
and then when when Stranger Things happens, I'm looking at Stranger Things and I'm just thinking, hey, stay out of my childhood, you bastards! What the hell is going on here? But it's really amazing how well they nailed. One of our good friends, Sherman Augustus, has a role in Stranger Things, which is going to start shooting here towards the end of the month. So we're looking forward to Stranger Things coming back. But man, they really nailed Stranger Things. If you want to know how well they nailed it, watch The Goonies.
Oh. Well, if you want to win this, send that email and put Goonies in the subject line. Goonies looks great on 4K. It looks absolutely terrific. Richard Donner, of course, directed this, who directed the original Superman, many episodes of Gilligan's Island, the Lethal Weapon films, Lady Hawk. I mean, he was the man in the 80s. Donner was one of those top-tier directors, and it's kids on an absolutely Spielbergian adventure. Spielberg produced it, and it's still a really fun film. I think I like it more now than I did even at the time. It's absolutely kind of amazing how this film has really, really aged well, and it has a screenplay by Chris Columbus. So go figure. I normally don't like his screenplays, but there it is. The next one, send us an email with the word in the subject line, Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice, also on 4K. We're going to give one of these away. Michael Keaton and Tim Burton mixing it up again. It wasn't after Batman. It was before Batman, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was
before Batman.
Yeah.
I'm getting all my 80s chronology. This was 88, so Batman was after this. That's why. Yeah, you know what? Really, speaking about Stranger Things, Winona Ryder. This is the movie that kind of made her a genre icon. Beetlejuice also absolutely perfect 4K transfer. It looks absolutely deliriously great. These all have Movies Anywhere codes on them, so you can add them as well. Not necessarily loaded with extras, but it's got like some Beetlejuice animated TV episodes on it and theatrical trailer. That animated show was never very great, but the movie still really, really fun. And then the last two, okay. If we're gonna send one person is gonna get both of these because it wouldn't make sense to make people choose. So we're gonna give one very, very lucky person both Sherlock Holmes and Sherlock Holmes Game of Shadows. Send the email to gods@digigods.com or gods@cinegods.com with Sherlock in the subject line. So these Guy Ritchie directed Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes films look better than they did projected. I still think there are problems with the way these movies were shot. I think a lot of that has to do with the digital effects. Mm-hmm. They're not going to look as brilliant as I think most people would expect a 4K to look. Still look really good, but again, you can't fix in post and in digital what was broken when you shot the movie. That said, Tim, how do you feel about the Sherlock Holmes movies?
Well, the thing about those Sherlock Holmes movies, both of them, they're both, at the end of the day, Guy Ritchie films. That's what they are. They're Guy Ritchie films. Now, are they about Sherlock Holmes? Is he solving all these? Sure, all of that is in there. But they are the same as Snatch.
Yeah.
Stock and Two Smoking Barrels. They're Guy Ritchie films more than they are Sherlock Holmes films. And I think I like Sherlock Holmes all by itself.
I am a huge Sherlock Holmes fan. I read all the books as a kid, all the stories. This, of course, has next to nothing to do with any of it. These are trying to be action films. They want to turn Sherlock Holmes into an action hero, playing off of Robert Downey Jr. being Iron Man, try to give him another franchise. I've heard rumor that they think they can do another one of these movies. I certainly hope they don't. I think Game of Shadows was a mess. Game of Shadows is like the Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull of this franchise. But really, it truly was. It was like nobody cared at that point. They were just phoning it in. But despite my reservations, I really thought that there was a lot of fun stuff in the first one. It has a featurette on it where they talk to Robert Downey Jr. and it's the standard stuff. Guy Ritchie and Robert Downey Jr. talking about reinventing it, and it's fine. It's not brilliant or anything, but there is, if you don't sort of compare this to other Sherlock Holmes, I think there is something to the casting of Robert Downey Jr. and Jude Law.
And Jude Law. Look, they
Yeah,
gave they rehabilitate Watson. They allowed Jude Law to rehabilitate Watson from the sort of silly Watson that
yeah,
that
and
hated
and truly, there's nothing more unusual about the reinvention here than what we get on television in Elementary.
yeah,
Frankly,
Elementary or that Benedict Cumberbatch thing.
that's it.
Yeah, hey, like I said, Guy Ritchie films. Now,
Yeah,
I like Guy. I say that like I don't like Guy Ritchie films. I like Guy Ritchie films.
yeah.
Guy Ritchie has been making Guy Ritchie films for 20 years now.
Yes, he
and,
has.
and they're all Guy Ritchie films. So it's a it's a certain sort of box. It's a fun box, but it's a box.
And I want to make mention of something too. So there's also we haven't done a music segment in a while. I got a lot of music kind of piled up, but this is one that I don't have a track. I would have loved to kind of launch the show on one of the tracks, but we only got them digitally in a way that I can't really access them for the show. But did you know Deep Purple is still cutting albums?
Hell no.
Yes,
Go Deep Purple.
Deep Purple just came out with a new album. And it's out on a CD DVD combo, and you can get it. It's from Ear Music and Eagle Vision. But yeah, from Ear Music, it is Whoosh, WHOOSH exclamation point, Whoosh. It's really not bad. It still sounds like they made it in 1970. I kid you not. You're like, this sounds like stuff they were doing in 1970. It's got exactly the same guitar riffs, and it's just much more cleanly produced because it's digital. But there's a number of really, really cool tracks on it, and it's worth checking out. I would recommend people do it. What's funny is when they sent me all the promotional stuff for it, they got a picture of the band sitting there in one of those rock poses that bands used to do back in the 70s when they stand around looking all cool, and they got the same hair and the same pose and the same clothes, except they are wrinkly and gray. And just wrinkly and gray. And
Deep Purple, 1968. That's that's a long time.
Anyway, so I was surprised, but you know what? I love Deep Purple, and go guys! I can't believe it. You've outlasted a lot of bands in that time. So good on you. So we got a ton of TV. Before I get into the TV, also we have one Criterion this week that I should make mention of. By the way, and you know this from our exchange in emails earlier, ton of Albert Brooks films, all the great Albert Brooks films on Criterion Channel, including Mother, which I watched again last night just because it's so unbelievably funny. That exchange early on when Debbie Reynolds says, "I love you," and then he says, "I know you think you do." I just sat there and I just laughed myself almost into a coma. I know you think you do.
Albert Brooks.
So
it was
great.
a really interesting conversation. Wade, me, and our buddy Wade Green, and Mark, of course, Mark.
Yeah.
Talking about Albert Brooks and his presence in movies.
Yeah.
Particularly, a particular way in which he brings comedy. It's just
it's just great.
Oh man!
Well, Criterion on disc has Jean Renoir's Toni out this week, and this is a 1935 film that may not even be terribly well known to a lot of Renoir fans, but you really, really do have to check this out. I mean, it is a beautiful, beautiful, powerful film. Renoir was one of the few filmmakers in the 1930s who was really, really pushing the artistic envelope in ways that others were not. And this is based on a true story, and it's set in an immigrant community, an immigrant working class community in the south of France, and it deals with affairs. Let's just say it deals with affairs and how that leads to a sort of Shakespearean chain of events. It's really a sharp film, very, very powerful, and shockingly for the era. This is the kind of thing I would have expected more from the 50s. He was very much ahead of his time. So Renoir, the great filmmaker and son of the great painter, really, really knocked one out of the park in 1935. and is little known, perhaps only because some of his other films are more well known. But Toni, Toni, by Jean Renoir on Blu-ray from Criterion, loaded with some wonderful, wonderful extras, including an audio commentary originally recorded in 2006 with two film scholars, Kent Jones and Philip Lopate. And it also has a really, really interesting 1967 episode of Cinéastes de notre temps, which is all about Renoir, that was directed by Jacques Rivette, the great French New Wave filmmaker. And it's very interesting. It's really, really interesting. You'll learn a lot here, and I certainly did as well. So Toni from Criterion. So let's get into some television. We got a giant pile of it here. Tim, anything that jumps out at you?
Well, let's start at the top. Eureka. This wacky little series. It surprises me that this series ran five seasons. So we have a complete series of Eureka. I liked Eureka because it reminded me of Northern Exposure in a certain
it does kind of, yeah.
It was set up in the Northwest. Northern Exposure set in Alaska. And anyway, this guy is the sheriff of the town, and the government has taken all of these sort of super scientists from all over and they have these guys here, and they're doing all these sort of wacky inventions and stuff is going wrong just about all the time. And it was just really, really, really funny to me. Plus, I loved that Sally Richardson is in Eureka along with Colin Ferguson. 5 complete seasons. Anything interesting in that box set there, Wade?
You know, not overly by way of extras. They got some commentary tracks and deleted scenes, gag reels, webisodes, featurettes. That's really all that's here. I mean, it's just kind of a standard array of stuff, but it is a cute show, and 12 discs in a nice slimline set. Worth checking out. You know, we got a couple of original Shudder movies here. Shudder has really been doing some interesting work. Stuff goes on. You watch it. These are Shudder originals, and then they put them to disc. And it's a model of putting stuff that you air, and you kind of generate a lot of buzz on television, and then you go to disc, and the disc winds up doing, in many cases, better than what it did actually on television. It's kind of the inverse of the way this thing used to work. But they're making some really, really interesting original horror films, low-budget horror stuff that rivals anything that would normally go straight to theatrical. It's an interesting new model for horror filmmakers. And Z is pretty great. Z, with the tagline "Z wants to play," is really, really cool. This is a horror film that goes where I've never seen a horror film go before. The Imaginary Friend. I mean, yes, we've had, I See Dead People and things like that, but never quite in the traditional I have an imaginary friend. Oh, of course you do, sweetheart. The little boy who, brings home his imaginary friend, and the friend is named Z. That should have been your first giveaway. Yeah. Little boys name their imaginary friends things like Harvey, Freddie, Annie, cute names. If your child's imaginary friend is just named Z, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
Something wrong. Get out of that house. Go somewhere. Hire an exorcist, whatever you're going to do. Anyway, then, of course, things start going haywire, and the kid starts to have like a Damien personality and blames Z for what he's doing. Anyway, it all goes south, as it has to, and it goes into some really creepy, dark places. It's very cool. The other Shudder original is just a good straight up gore fest. Not really my kind of thing, but I know people like this. It's called Blood Quantum, with the unbelievably timely tagline, "When the dead rise, only the immune survive." I'm kind of feeling like, yeah, I think we're just about there with COVID. But this is a zombie movie, and it has to do with immunity to the zombie plague, who's immune and who is not, and that obviously changes the risk, and it's all very kind of frontier oriented in this indigenous community in Canada. This is a Canadian independent film, and it's a cool little kind of low budgety thing. So it doesn't transcend the zombie genre, but if you're kind of mixing and they don't call them Native Americans, they call them First Nations.
First Nations, yes.
First Nations.
Yes.
So in Canadian parlance, it's kind of mixing First Nations culture and mysticism with zombie movie stuff. It's all right. It's not bad. not my thing, but it is a nice addition to the corpus. Blood Quantum
Mm.
and Z, both Shudder originals.
Uh,
What?
back over in TV, Blue Bloods, dude. The 10th season of Blue Bloods. Get out of here.
And Tom still looks the same as he did in Magnum PI 40 years ago.
It's just nuts, you know. But you know, it's one of those things where those shows, and there are a lot of those, you know, Chicago shows, those blue shows that are on. This is the 10th season of Blue Bloods. Donnie Wahlberg and Bridget Moynahan and that whole little family there in Chicago. So 10th season. Wade, anything in particular special?
Tons, yeah. There's a 200th episode celebration thing on here, and then thing called a little featurette called Dinner with the Reagans and some deleted scenes. But it's the 200th episode celebration that's really nice because it does sort of reemphasize that yes, they've been on for 10 years, and you really kind of have to tip your hat to it. It is tough to keep any show fresh for a decade. You know, you really need a hook, and boy, I'll tell you, you know, Magnum PI went for what, about 12 years? I
Yeah.
mean, Tom Selleck, you know, normally you would say, oh, he did it. He's been there. He's done that. He's had his successful show. 12 years, you're never going to get another Magnum. You're too old now. You know, you did Magnum to death. Now you're kind of out past your prime. Son of a bitch, man. Look at
Yeah.
this. He
Pulled it
did
off.
it again.
And
And there's no end in sight. They can do this another 4 or 5 years.
look, Tom. There was a moment there where trying to make it from television to film was kind of like a big deal. Doesn't not much of a big deal anymore. Folks go back and forth between film and television all the time. Now, in some ways, getting to television from film is the thing that actors are trying to do. But Tom had that chore of where he had to make it from being this huge, iconic, but nevertheless stamped Magnum PI into movies. And he had that little run in movies, Quickly Down Under, that baseball movie he did, where he was a baseball player in Japan, and a few others. And all of that kind of stuff, and then sort of whatever, and then rekindled his career with that run on Friends, playing Monica's boyfriend.
That's right. Yes, he did. That's right.
So and here comes Tom Selleck again, and that just led him right up into this decade of Blue Bloods run. So Tom has been a fixture on American television and American cinema and television for about 45 years now.
Yeah.
Not to mention when he's on television selling those whatever, he sells something on television. I forget what.
Yeah. He sells, well, reverse mortgages, hearing aids, colostomy bags. I don't know what it is, but I feel old.
You gotta love these guys.
There was one day when I remember I was watching TV, and at the end of the day, I said to myself, today I just tried. Jonathan Hart just tried to sell me a reverse mortgage. Captain Kirk just tried to sell me like a CPAP cleaner. The Fonz just tried to sell me gold. Steve Austin just tried to sell me hearing aids. Now I'm totally depressed. Now I feel old for the first time. That is wrong.
Yeah, particularly if I happen to actually need any of those things, which is just like,
oh, totally. So we got here. I'm gonna put everyone's mind at ease really quickly. We have from the DC television multiverse, the Arrowverse. We have the complete 5th season of Supergirl, complete 6th season of The Flash, and the complete 1st season of Batwoman. Now I know what you're thinking. Everybody's thinking, what I really want is I really want the epic 5-part crossover.
Oh, that whole multiverse.
Yeah, I want that epic 5 episode crossover between all the shows to be on just one set. I don't want to have to buy like all this season of all. You don't have to. This is what they've done really, really well. They have that on the complete 5-episode arc on each of these seasons. So just buy whatever season you like for whatever show you like. Boom. You will get the other 4 episodes folded in. It'll be all good.
That is so good and so not greedy. Thank you very much.
I appreciate that from them, and that 5-episode arc is pretty great. It is basically the DC television equivalent of the Avengers, Endgame Avengers. That whole Thanos arc. It's that for television with these characters, and I really appreciate that. Now, Tim, we're Supergirl fans. How do you feel about Supergirl's new kind of more muscular and chaste uniform? No more miniskirt.
Yeah, pants. She's
Yeah,
wearing pants. It's kind of like a pantsuit. Hey, I've been watching Supergirl fly around in that miniskirt for 45 years.
yeah.
I'm good if she wants to put on a pair of pants. You do your thing, sister. But so long as they didn't make it into like a thing, right? It wasn't like
Yeah,
sort of a feminist statement.
yeah.
Sometimes, and besides that, she's wearing the hell out of those pants. So
She
so
is.
so, so I got no problem with your thing. Do your thing, sis.
I'm okay but only because Wonder Woman is now out there
Yeah,
wearing her traditional outfit, so it's okay.
yeah.
As long as Wonder Woman doesn't lose the skirt, I'm good.
Just don't be hating on it. And the other thing about that, particularly in our Supergirl, Kara, when she's not being Supergirl,
Yeah,
Kara has the most fantastic wardrobe on television. That reporter for
yeah,
there, and so Kara looks fantastic anyway. In all
yeah.
of her outfits, so when Supergirl suits up in her jumpsuit, now that's okay. I'm a Batgirl fan too, by the way. I know a lot of people, some people are not big on that, but I am a
But
Batgirl fan. Ruby Rose,
Ruby Rose just walked away from the show, though. They
but
got to
she just
recast.
they got to recast that show, and I'm like, what the heck is going on? I was two. What did she get in 2 seasons? I think she got in 2 seasons, right?
I think she finished. Yeah, I think she got in 2 seasons, but she got injured. If you remember,
Yeah,
she had an injury doing a stunt. We're talking earlier, about stunts and Chadwick, and I think the takeaway was she just decided that the part was too dangerous and physically demanding. She didn't want to risk getting hurt again because the injury, and I can't remember what the injury was, but it was pretty close to being really scary. Like she could have died.
so
It was
like a real serious spine sort of neck kind of.
yeah, it was like if something had been 2 inches further closer, or if she had 1 second later, it was one of those deals. You might not have been able to walk again, and I think she just that'll freak a person out.
Yeah,
That'll
it's
freak a
interesting because that
person
was
out.
complicated casting. It was interesting in the way they decided to go with that story. From Ruby Rose is gay, Batgirl was gay, Batwoman was
Yeah,
gay, in that storyline. Which was a very particular choice to make. You recast who you're going to recast
yeah,
with. It's not that Black Panther circumstance that we were talking about
no,
earlier in the show. It's not that.
right,
You can
no,
recast that and it'll be all right. But are you going to recast just the part, or are you going to recast the way we're doing Batgirl?
yeah,
Because they could do that too. They could recast the way they're doing Batgirl, or they could go with like George Papard, stepping in for Larry Hagman.
yeah.
you got to
True,
be you got to be 50 to have any idea what the hell I'm talking about right now.
true. Well, the my favorite of these, and I know yours probably too, is still the Flash.
Yeah.
I just love the love story on the Flash.
Yes.
Barry and Iris are. It's one of the great love stories in TV history, and I absolutely can't believe how they just keep this collection of characters moving along and just keep the storylines going. It's really very encouraging. It's now in this is the 6th season. It's going into its 7th season soon, and hopefully once they start shooting again. But anyway, this was a really really fun season, more so than I expected. Really took a little bit of a turn. They got a great commentary on here with Eric Wallace, who's one of the showrunners and producers, and all of these have some stuff from Comic-Con and other fun extras. So it was Comic-Con 2019, which feels like 10 years ago. So fun stuff. Fun stuff, really, man.
That's wild.
What else?
The Code, that series, which I watched a little bit of, not much. This is a complete series, 2 or 3 seasons, I think it had. Interesting series. These two brothers get involved in this sort of cover up, and Australian government.
These are JAGs. They're JAG attorneys, right? Is
Yeah.
that the story here? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's sort of an interesting series that I could have went on watching for a while. It's only 2 seasons. Did they put anything on that box set?
Not much. Deleted scenes, gag reel. That's it.
Well, that's what you get.
That's it. That's it.
Is this the Will and Grace? Is this the 1998 Will and Grace?
No, this
Season
is
3, or just the new Will and Grace?
this is the revival. This is the
Okay.
revival. Season 3 of the revival. Did you watch any of it?
first couple of episodes of the new stuff that came back, it made me feel old. For one thing, Will and Grace, first Will and Grace, that's 1998, folks. That's 22 years ago that it
Yeah.
started. Look, a lot changes to people's bodies in 20 plus years, and everybody
Yeah.
on that show got thicker.
Yeah.
and it started to make me feel kind of old, so I tapped out.
Yeah, and I started to watch some of these, and it kind of makes me sad on a certain level. Revivals never quite worked for me. I mean, I remember I liked them when I was a kid. It's like, hey, Gilligan's Island, and then
Yeah.
because they got back on the island again at the end, and everybody was pissed off, they had to come back with Gilligan's Island and the Harlem Globetrotters. We had to do that whole shtick, which was just so embarrassing. And now they've turned the island into a resort, and now it's gone the other direction. I'm like, well, look, I want them to get off the island. I didn't want them to go back and like turn it into a tourist attraction. What are you doing?
Yeah.
But nonetheless, the problem there is everybody's so much older, and you kind of feel like they're trying too hard to reinvent and recapture something that is gone. And I feel a little bit the same with Will and Grace. It doesn't have the same spark. It feels like they're competing against themselves, and that's a little unfortunate.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly the mood that I took from that. Brooklyn Nine-Nine, man. Season 7 again. Brooklyn Nine-Nine all the way into the 7th season. If you were to ask me 7 seasons ago, is this going to make it 9 seasons? I'd tell you no. But you know what? There it is. Andy Samberg. Who would have thought that the kid coming off SNL, off SNL, would be such a popular fixture in this sort of goofy sitcom?
It is a shock. I did not expect this show to ever be a big deal. But you know what? I mean, they put together a really, really smart cast.
Particularly Andre Braugher as counter casting in there.
See, that's the thing, is that Andre Braugher is such a heavy, right? He's the guy that you put in a show normally when you want to bring the drama. And right, because he's just so intense, and he has that voice, and here some smart person thought, you know what, if Leslie Nielsen could go from being a heavy to being a complete wacky comedy guy in all of those Naked Gun movies, why not just put Andre Braugher into a show like this and see what that does to the comedy mixture? And it works, man. It really, really works.
Fantastic casting on their part, and smart of him to say, after all those years, on that cop show. Which cop show was he on? I forget.
It was New York Undercover.
Was one of the New York Undercover? One of the Law and Orders, maybe.
No. It was hold on. Gosh, they all get this. I get mixed up. I'm sure our listeners are screaming right now. It was no. It's or was it the Barry Levinson thing? Right, Baltimore, wasn't that?
Oh yeah, that's
Homicide. Homicide, Life on the Street.
Homicide, Life on the Street.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
But I mean, look. I mean, it's still a terrific. Everybody else here. Dirk Blocker is great. Terry Crews is great. Joel McKinnon Miller is great. I mean, it's a really, really great collection. Melissa Fumero. I mean, it's a really terrific collection of actors. They got great cast chemistry out of it, and they're a lot of fun to watch.
Absolutely. Speaking of long running cop shows, Law and Order SVU season. Wait for it. 21. 21.
Man,
it can drink.
Here's the thing that I most respect about this show, because we've had people come and go on this show. They've dipped in and out, and not very few people have stuck with it from the very, very beginning. But I'll tell you, notwithstanding Mariska, good for her, because it's her show. She got to redefine one of the all-time great feminist characters in TV history. She owns this show at this point. It fully belongs to her, and they pay her an outrageous amount of money. But good on Cube.
Yeah.
Good on Ice Cube, who said, and this reminds me of something that Ed McMahon said.
Ice-T.
Sorry, not Cube. T. Thank you, Ice-T.
We got our black hip hop guys mixed up.
I got my Ices. I got my Ices mixed up. So good on Ice-T for doing the Ed McMahon thing, which is that Ed McMahon once said the great advice he got from his dad was never venture too far from the well. And he said, Tonight Show is the well.
Yeah.
And it's like, good on you. And so T, who's really got like everything going, and I mean, when he went on this show, he still had a major recording career.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he said he clearly understood this is the well.
Yeah.
This show is where the money is. I cannot imagine, after all the residuals and all the reruns and all the seasons, how insanely wealthy this show must have made him.
Made him more money than he ever made than all.
Right.
He had some big records, Ice-T.
Oh yeah,
And
oh, yeah.
made a few movies too. Yeah, it ran around 2 or 3 movies.
Well,
Back in the early 90s.
The guy who was scandalous for recording
Yeah, Cop Killer.
winds up playing cop for 21 years is pretty fantastic.
Which I think is just irony among wonderful ironies. There it is, man. Those guys.
But he and Mariska are really pretty much the last one standing on this show, and they're doing a great job of it. I mean, it's he is. The nice thing is, and again, this is a very formulaic show, but after 21 years, just watching some of these episodes, and I watch some of the reruns occasionally, but it's as formulaic as it is, they're still able to develop their characters. I mean, what he's doing here is he's sort of a seasoned old cop now. He was a really, really kind of rebellious, he was the guy that always wanted to go out and light everything up, and everybody's like, oh, you gotta kind of hold it back. And now he's the voice of wisdom on the show. It's really fascinating where they've taken his character, and he's become a really good actor. I'd love to. I don't want the show to end necessarily, but I'd love to see what he could do with a bigger acting career.
Yeah. It's just the ridiculous thing is he can't afford to do a movie.
I know. It's true.
Can't afford to miss an episode of this, baby. They pay me $300,000 an episode. So I can't do that. Makes all sense in the world to me. Yeah.
Magnum PI season 2.
The
new Magnum PI.
Look, I like that kid.
He's good. Jay Hernandez.
Like him.
Yeah.
Made a wonderful movie with Kristen Dunst back in the day called Crazy Beautiful, and that's him. He was just fantastic at that. He's not Magnum PI.
No.
I don't know why this show had to be called Magnum PI. It's very successful. The hell with me. But if you take that kid, you make him a private detective. You set him up as a private detective anywhere, really, but Hawaii certainly. Okay, it's Hawaii. It's still going to be a hit. It's still going to be a hit show.
Yeah.
Because it's because it would be a hit show. You call it Magnum PI. I guess you get some buy-in. But in my bones, back when this started, I just thought the people who need to buy into the show need to be my age or older. But no, a younger audience, a good, solid generation younger than me, bought into this show. And I guess that they came up watching Tom Selleck play Magnum in reruns. That's the only thing that I can think of. For you, Tom and I, Tom, for us, was first run television.
Yeah, for sure.
We didn't. I guess this group of kids who came up watching it and rerun, and there they are. They're in for their Magnum PI.
Well, as long as we're talking about resurrected shows, we also have season 2 of the new Dynasty, which simply doesn't work for me at all.
No.
It's a CW thing. I just don't. I don't know. I know they tried to resurrect Dallas, and then Larry Hagman died, and then they decided let's do a new. But you know what? Without John Forsythe, without
Joan
Evans,
Collins,
without
Linda
Joan Collins,
Evans,
they were larger than life, and there's nobody on here that's larger than life. I just don't know why they had to go back to this well. I don't get it.
And also I think that perhaps thematically, Dallas Dynasty, also back in the day, Falcon Crest, Flamingo Road. There was this whole run of these shows. About these families that lived in the excess of whatever it happened to be. Dallas and Dynasty was the oil business, the Colorado oil business, the Texas oil business. Falcon Crest was the wine business,
Yeah.
And to some, for whatever reason, in the middle of the late 80s, that was a very, very sort of interesting thing for ordinary people to engage in, to watch these people and how dastardly they were as in avarice, how much avarice they engaged in. I guess a show like Succession is doing that.
Yeah.
Now, perhaps something like that. But you'll notice that much more popular today are shows about regular everyday families. This Is Us. All of those sort of sitcoms. The Thundermans. I think we got the Thundermans on the list here today as a sitcom. that's been running
Yeah.
7 or 8, 4 seasons now. And I don't know. I think that these shows about families engaged in, at least in terms of sort of networky sort of television, they just don't work the way they used to some 30 odd years ago now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I agree. Speaking of, we've got 3 other Paramount and CBS shows. They're all in their first seasons, and a couple of them have really, really good. They have some pretty good cast power in them. We've got Why Women Kill in its first season with Lucy Liu, The Unicorn in its first season with Walton Goggins, and then Strange Angel in its first season. Tim, have you watched any of these?
Why Women Kill? Yeah, that Lucy Liu show. I sure did watch that series. The wicked little series there. I certainly enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, so all of these went right past me. I haven't had the bandwidth to really pay much attention to any of them. And certainly, Why Women Kill takes place in your neck of the woods in Pasadena.
Yeah.
In 3 different periods. Like a couple of years ago, the 1980s and 1960s. Seems really, really ambitious.
Yeah, it's a great, gorgeous little anthology series too. Jennifer Goodwin, really, really good in that series too. Those different decades, it's all in the same house, and they deal with this sort of infidelity and betrayal. It's going on, and that's why it answers the question: why women kill.
It's gonna be really interesting to see where it goes in future seasons. I mean, it feels to me like almost like an existential twist on Desperate Housewives.
I do. I like these sort of anthologies where you have these shows and the actors stay the same, but the characters change, and it's just an interesting sort of way to do something. Plus, it gives these actors really a fantastic. They can really stretch out and do what they do.
I have a problem with the Unicorn. Have you seen The Unicorn with Walton Goggins?
Don't know that one.
Okay, so here's my problem. It's the same problem that I have with the Deadpool films, which I mostly like, but there's one thing that really bothers me in the Deadpool movies, and that is that every single time someone addresses the lead character, I go, "What?" Because his name is Wade. I don't like hearing my name on the screen.
I completely missed that.
Walton Goggins in this movie is named Wade. I can't watch an episode. It's like, well, hey, Wade. I'm like, what? Oh, damn. And it's just really, really irritating to me.
I do remember the show. This is he's playing the widower.
Yeah, he's lost his wife. And
I remember.
It feels it's like 30-something with tragedy, kind of, or 40-something with tragedy. Anyway, but yeah, it's what it means to lose your spouse and then be single again, and then it has a lot of really, really sweet, happy family life in it. It's interesting. I don't know where a second season could necessarily go, but Goggins is always really, really interesting. Strange Angel is a hell of a show, and I don't think I quite understand it. I watched about half the first season, and I'm not the least bit sure where this is necessarily going. It's kind of like how do I even explain this without giving anything away? It feels to me on some level like a cross between how would I put this? Breaking Bad and the Russell Crowe movie, Ron Howard, won Best Picture. Beautiful Mind.
Beautiful Mind. Yeah.
It feels like a cross between Breaking Bad and A Beautiful Mind.
Very interesting.
I won't get into any of the specifics of the story. I just want to know how this show was pitched, because it's a really, really out there kind of a premise called Strange Angel. There's no one of note in the cast, but somehow this made it to television, got through a first season. I'd love to have been in the room when they cast this and tried to convince somebody to do this, because it really is very, very unusual. Let's get into the Thundermans, because there's a 4-season box set here from Nickelodeon.
And that's another one I did. If you had asked me, how many 4 seasons of the Thundermans, which is kind of funny. I watched it. I don't know, 2 or 3 episodes of the first season. It was funny. It lives right in that old school Roseanne, old school family sitcom space. That's been there for 1,000 for 1,000 years. It's funny. It's with these goofy kids and and all that kind of stuff. But what are they? Superheroes.
Yeah.
Superpowers. Might be twins. All that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I had fun with this goofy show.
Last Man Standing is now. Guess in what year? Guess what season it's in?
Oh my God! It's gonna be some number way higher than I think. To me, it would be season 3. But what is it?
Yeah, 8.
8? Get out of here!
8. Now this show was canceled. Remember, they canceled it, and then all the fans said, this is liberal executives waging war on the conservative audience, and he's a working class hero, and we want this show on TV, and the show came back.
Yeah, which is
they made it
interesting thing.
It's got a following, and 8th season. It's unbelievable. 21 episodes on 3 discs. I don't find this show particularly charming. I still like him. I like
Tim Allen, who, of course, the Tool Time guy for many, many years.
Yeah, but this is still basically that same, still Home Improvement. It really is. Kind of the same show.
I don't suppose that Tim was demonstrably conservative or liberal on that Tool Time show, and of course,
he was not.
Here, this guy is he's being this guy.
He's a more likable Archie Bunker.
Yeah,
is what he is. Yeah, he's not a bigot. He's just he is what he is. And he's
kind of Tim Allen. He's
Tim Allen. That's exactly what he did. He's doing himself again. Of course he is. But yeah, I mean, it's mostly gender humor, him and with the women in his life, the daughter and his wife and all that stuff. I mean, yeah, that's mostly where the comedy comes from. But you know what? I mean, it's got some good supporting performances.
Nancy Travis is in this series, dude. Nancy, 3 Men and a Baby.
I know.
I love me some Nancy Travis, so it's okay.
She's still great.
She absolutely is. She absolutely is. Endeavour, the British series? Among the many British series there. What season is this that because I absolutely loved Endeavour, which is set in the 60s, which is one of the reasons why I love it. Endeavour, Detective Morse, it's in the 60s. Everything's so pop.
Endeavor's one of a number of British shows we've got this week. This is on Blu-ray, Masterpiece Mystery. Endeavour in its 7th season.
7th season, wow.
7th season on Blu-ray. Looks really nice. British stuff didn't used to look this nice before, but they really shoot the hell out of this show, and it captures the period really, really nicely. They got bonus video on here, featurettes. One of which is all about recreating that look of the period. Now it's in the 1970s. But yeah, it's a pretty great show. Some great style. These guys are such good actors.
Yes,
like especially Roger Allam is such a great period kind of face. Isn't he?
Yeah. Exactly. And that's exactly what it is. These guys are just all such wonderful actors, and the writing is always so good. The drama, these gorgeous settings. I just love that they can still recreate these sort of British period settings in the UK. You can still get these. You still have places that look like these places, and they can do these sets. And it's like you're watching some show from the 60s in the UK, as opposed to a show set in the 60s in the UK. It's just a completely different thing. Deadwater Fell. If I'm not mistaken, that's another one of those. The family is murdered by someone they knew. It's just heavy stuff, man.
Yep, we got a couple acorns here. Deadwater Fell is the one on Blu-ray with the always amazing David Tennant. I mean, and I still think back, and I realize now, much as I love that first season of Jessica Jones, you know what I really love about it? I hate to admit it, but David Tennant makes that whole first season.
Yeah,
he is such a wicked villain.
Absolutely menacing, particularly after playing I forget which number doctor he was, but playing that Doctor Who was such an affable fellow. That villain and Jessica Jones was just absolutely viciously wicked.
Well, here he plays a physician married to a school teacher who, in Scotland, and after they get burned out of their home by a fire. That leads to this really, really interesting mystery, and it's pretty great. Cush Jumbo, who has one of the greatest names in British television, she co-stars. It's really great. But I mean, you're watching this just again for these great actors. Also from Acorn, not on Blu-ray but on DVD, is Dead Still, which was not on my radar. Had you heard of Dead Still?
Don't know that one either. Dead Still. Is it one of the British series?
It's a British show. It's Victorian era. It's a British show. It's Victorian era, and it stars Michael Smiley, another great British name, who is basically he lives in it's Victorian Ireland, and his job is to take what do they call them? The photographs of dead people. There was a special word for it, right? And that should tell you right there, you're not going to have a happy comedy about people who photograph dead people, and then it just doesn't. And all of this is to sort of help people deal with the grieving process, and then enter a bunch of real life murders, and you got to and then a detective played by Aidan O'Hare, and now the photographer is dragged into the process of having to kind of solve the murders that are putting his profession and his reputation at risk. It's pretty great. It's pretty great. Shot entirely in and around Dublin, but Victorian era Dublin. It's a really, really smart show. Dead Still, really, really fun. The whole idea, photography, the way for photography, old fashioned Victorian era photography with the big box cameras is
you gotta get under that thing. I think they call it postmodern photography or something like that.
It's something like that, but it's really, really cool. It's really interesting.
Amazing. The Neighborhood, just perfectly. Look, this is about a white family that moves in next to a black family. Cedric the Entertainer, Max Greenfield, and all the jokes center around Cedric the Entertaining being kind of perplumped that this goofy white dude who's trying real hard to be woke has moved in next door. This is the Jeffersons. This is Joyce Jefferson living across the street from Archie Bunker, or perhaps better, this is George Jefferson living across the hall from that
Mr. Bentley.
From Mr. Bentley.
Yes.
And I'm like, are you kidding me? This is again, they're rating our childhood sitcoms.
So,
but it's set in the Midwest, and it's just they moved to this LA network, and it's just, I don't know, whatever. So it's funny.
This is, first of all, Cedric the Entertainer always kills me because it's just the way he uses his face.
Yeah,
is masterful. But I love the premise here, because the premise is what the British would say: it takes the piss out of you.
Mm-hmm.
It just lets a little bit of the air out of our overly self-important moment, which is at times just too stifling for most people.
Yeah.
This reminds me, actually, I never talked to you about this, but it absolutely killed me. So there was a thing circulating on social media at one point, and I swear, dude, the guy was the spitting image of you. He looked just like you, exactly you. It was a black guy and a black girl who did a little social media thing because they were at the college somewhere, and they're about 150 meters from a Black Lives Matter demonstration at a statue. And he's doing this, and they're laughing because there's not a single black person in the crowd. Like the crowd around the statue, the Black Lives Matter crowd is 100% white people, and he goes, "This is ridiculous. This is just the stupidest thing I've ever seen." Like, they are laughing, and that's kind of what this show does. This show just sort of it calls out some of the more self-seriousness of the moment, and God bless them for that. It's kind of needed sometimes.
Oh yeah, but it's not remotely mean in any way whatsoever.
No,
and I just love that about it. It manages to make fun of it without being mean about any of it.
Yeah,
which I just love. Bull, that TV series Bull, with Michael Weatherly.
Isn't he in trouble? Isn't he in trouble now? Hasn't he gotten in trouble for being a jerk on the set or something?
Yeah. It's really sort of, because Michael Weatherly is one of those guys where if you were watching television all through the middle late '90s, early 2000s, you saw Michael Weatherly hundreds and hundreds of times. He was a guy who was just a fixture and all kinds of guest star here, guest star there. But gets this shot at this lead in the show. And what is the season here? I think we're in the second, third season, something like that.
Season 4, man.
Well, because they go back to.
I know.
In any case, and then he has himself one of these moments. of where it turns out that he's a dick, kind of like Ellen's situation over there. You know,
Yeah.
what they're talking about over there on the old Ellen set.
Uh,
And of course, a lot of it just has to do with who they are and how we perceive them. And then somebody turns around and says, "Yeah, you know what? Man, maybe kind of a dick."
well, we'll see. We'll see how that. We'll see
We'll
how
see
it
how
all shakes out.
Nevertheless, this show, I watched it a little bit. It's about one of those jury psychologist guys,
Yeah.
who sort of and interesting to a certain extent, and that he's not a lawyer, he's not a private detective. That's of course usually where these shows live. But to make him one of those jury consultant types, that's a new angle.
Yep.
At the end of the day, it's still a courtroom drama. No different than
True.
L.A. Law, no different than Ally McBeal, no different than any courtroom drama you ever watched, all the way back to Owen Marshall and Perry Mason. That's
Yep.
all it is. But it's a different angle on it, so I give him credit for that.
We've got a couple from Sundance Now, which is doing a lot of really interesting work. They've really flipped things over there at Sundance Now. It's you can get a free 30-day trial with some codes that you get on some of these discs. But I mean, I don't know if it's worth it for the as a pay service. But boy, some of this for some people it's going to be. They've got the Red Shadows, which is this really terrific series from France that's set in 1993, and there's a well, it starts in 1993. A little girl is kidnapped, and then you flash forward to 25 days, more or less, to the relatively recent history, and you pick up the cold case, and it's where that all kind of devolves. Um, utterly fascinating, unexpected writing. In theory, you would say that this is a thriller, but I think it's more than a thriller. I think it's almost like, what was the Jane Campion show? Top of the
I know
gosh,
top
of the top. Yeah, the Australian thing that's kind of like the Australian Ozark. Anyway, really, or was it New Zealand? Is it a New Zealand show? Whichever it is, top of the mountain, top of the peak, top of the hill, whatever the Jane Campion thing is. Anyway, it's a little bit like that, except a French version of it. Beautiful environment, beautiful kind of pastoral locations, and it goes to some pretty intense, dark places. The other Sundance Now series is in its end of its season 1. It's coming back with a second season, Playing for Keeps. Which is a murder mystery set set against the backdrop of Australian rules football, which is like rugby for crazy people, and rugby is like football for crazy people. So Australian rules football is pretty insane, but it uses that as a backdrop for this really fascinating kind of murder mystery intrigue, and great show, really smart. So that's another great one from Sundance Now.
Outstanding. The Resident, another doctor show. A group of doctors actually at a hospital, and you have this central figure who's one of these guys who's gonna try to do things a different way. What season do we have here? We have the third season.
Third season of The Resident.
Watched a few episodes of season 1. A pretty good show. It lives in the spots of all of these shows. To me, again, having been watching these for this reminded me of the very old Chad Everett series, Medical Center.
Oh yeah, it does. It does a little bit. You're right.
You got to be from a certain year and you remember that one. But it was back around the same time as your Dr. Wells and all of that.
With Bruce Greenwood kind of playing the Chad Everett part.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. No, I get that. And Greenwood's great, but it is definitely that for sure. I like to see Malcolm Jamal Warner here too as well. It's nice to see him kind of grow up, because he got stuck in the Cosby Show rut for a while and couldn't sort of dig himself out. There's some great stuff. Manish Dayal is really good on the show. We'll see where that goes. It's got to navigate an interesting space between Grey's Anatomy and ER, in terms of reputation.
Yeah.
We got an original series from Shudder here called Cursed Films, which is all about the unfortunate stories behind a lot of horror films. Poltergeist, The Omen, The Crow, which we all know, obviously, Jason died on Twilight Zone, the movie. Horrible accident where Vic Morrow died with those children. The Exorcist. This is it's almost too much in many respects because I remember a lot of this, but some of the stuff I don't think I ever actually knew about, like the stuff that went on the set of Poltergeist, news to me. So
The
some of
little
this, I
the little girl from the Poltergeist is the one who, they're here. That little girl.
yeah, yeah.
We lost to some sort of disease or something, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, this gets into this. Yeah, this gets into allegedly using actual human skeletons on the set of the movie. Um, a lot of weird stuff, and again, a lot of this is legend and lore, and they're trying to build a series out of it, and it's some of this is stronger than the others. The Omen and the Exorcist stuff is a little bit of a reach. Poltergeist is interesting, but ultimately, when you get to The Crow and Twilight Zone, the movie, it gets a little horrific. So it's a little tough to deal with the revisiting some of that.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, audio commentary for all 5 episodes. It is a series called Cursed Films, original series for Shudder.
Morbid.
Yeah, a little bit.
Indeed. I would say young Sheldon. I guess that series. What was the Big Bang series?
Yeah,
Ended a season or so ago, or a year or so ago. And young Sheldon kind of crossed over with it for a season or two. And young Sheldon is kind of picking up right where it left off. People love young Sheldon.
in a weird way because I don't.
Yeah,
I think he's
look,
annoying.
I was
Drives me crazy.
I was not a particularly big fan of the Big Bang series, to be honest with you. I didn't, that's not a sitcom that I followed much. My mom liked it though, so but here it is. Chuck Lorre, edited again out of the Big Bang series. Here's young Sheldon.
He has a magic touch. This show to me is like someone made the pitch. Let's do the Wonder Years, except instead of having him be really sweet and adorable, we'll have him be really precocious and irritating. Okay. I don't know who wants to watch that, but okay, sure, whatever. Got 2 more British shows here from Acorn. Kind of diametric opposites of each other, but what great casts. Gold Digger is another really cool thrillery series with Julia Ormond on it, who just, she's older, but she's still just wonderful. I just still absolutely adore Julia Ormond. She's not the Legends of the Fall Julia Ormond anymore, but she's great.
Yeah.
She's really, really great. Here she co-stars with Ben Barnes, who's a real star in the making. I wouldn't be surprised to see him be in the running to play James Bond one day. Maybe not yet, give it about 10 years, but he could do it. So anyway, she's having a bit of a midlife crisis. Her husband, had an affair, and she's really disenfranchised from her family, and she meets this young guy who makes her feel young again. And but is he really into her? Is he into her money? Sounds like a kind of a traditional thing, like a usual thrillery thing, but not really. That there's some other angles to it, and the 2 actors are terrific. And then from the people who gave us Miss Fisher's Murder Mysteries is Seachange, Paradise Reclaimed, which is kind of like if Lifetime actually made more sophisticated stuff with an Australian cast, it would be this. It has a real kind of an Aussie down under flavor to it. It's a little bit bitter, but it's a little bit funny. There's just a unique sensibility to those Aussie shows, and this is similar. This is about a woman whose marriage busted up, and she's lost her job, so she goes home to where she came from, hasn't been back in decades, and it's about how the town has changed and how she's able to sort of reinvent her life. It's another one. It is like Gold Digger. It is a midlife crisis thing, but not a thriller. It's a little more sentimental. So those are 2 interesting ones from Acorn TV.
Murder in the Bayou, that 5-part docuseries, dude, is absolutely chilling. So it's a 5-part docuseries that investigates unsolved murders of 8 women in and around the town of Jennings, Louisiana.
Oh, holy cow!
And it's sort of like roams through this entire history of the death of these 8 women, with all of these people talking to reporters and these documentary investigators. And to me, it's not as goofy as that whole Tiger King thing that was all the
Yeah, that's too much.
But it's based on a best-selling book that investigated the exact same murders of the women whose bodies were discovered in these drainage canals and these desolate sort of back roads of Jennings, Louisiana. And it looks at their lives, and we get to know them. And accusations, the victims' relatives, all kinds of possibilities for who might have committed these horrible, horrible crimes, because there's so many terrible people
Yeah.
involved in all of this that you're it's a wonder that anyway. A hell of a docu-series, Murder in the Bayou.
So if people want to go a little deep for some classic TV, I'm going to give you a couple here. There's the Gunsmoke. The Gunsmoke is out in a complete series now, so we don't have to wait for that anymore. But there's also the Gunsmoke movie collection,
Yeah.
and these are the 3 Gunsmoke movies. 2 of them rated R, by the way. 2 of them rated R because they're that violent. Return to Dodge, The Last Apache, and To the Last Man. All of them pretty true to the spirit of the thing. James Arness really getting back in the saddle, and I'd forgotten these even existed, but good on them for getting them out in a nice DVD set. It would be better in a Blu-ray set, but for now we'll take it. And then the Emmy Award-winning miniseries The Temptations, directed by Alan Arkish, which I still think should have been a feature film. It's that good. It is absolutely phenomenal. It is one of the best. This is better than most music bios that get theatrically released, like Bohemian Rhapsody and whatnot. The Temptations is absolutely great. It is terrific, and it manages to balance every single one of those characters and give them a voice and ample screen time.
Oh, and
Very impressive.
Look, a couple of brothers got made out of this series. You got D.B. Woodside playing Melvin Franklin. You got Leon, who always only went by the one name, playing David Rush.
Leon graduated from the Madonna music video where he's just standing there looking good.
Played Black Jesus, and I think he was also in that Robert Townsend film.
Yes, he was.
That was not about the Temptations, but everybody always thought of it as being the Five Heartbeats. The Five Heartbeats. That's
Five Heartbeats. Yeah. No, he is, which is kind of about the Temptations, but man, is he good here. Everybody is just great. This still, you revisit this and you realize that this is how good television can be. Network television can do really, really great work, and this is one of them. And good on Alan Arkish. Really just superb. Absolutely superb. What else? We got a few things left here.
Jane the Virgin, dude. Jane the Virgin.
Oh yeah,
5th season. Did they sign off already? They signed off last season, if I'm not mistaken.
Is this the end of it? Is it over now?
I think that Jane the Virgin signed off. Last season. This 5th season would be the last season of Jane the Virgin. A show that I Gina Rodriguez, perfectly captivating young woman. Knew her from back in the day. She lives again in the neighborhood and down the street from our buddy Sherman Augustus. And Sherm would help Gina prepare.
Oh wow, no kidding.
For auditioning for this role, and she went in and she nailed it and she got it, and it was fantastic, and really sort of made her career playing this story about this devout Catholic woman who finds out that she got accidentally artificially inseminated, which is sort of an outrage.
It's a little bit of a stretch, but if you can, it's good for an actor if you can pull it off, right?
Yeah. And this was another one of those shows where I think it was a big old hit in Latin America somewhere. Like Ugly Betty was a big hit in Latin America, and then they translated it to an American sort of Latin American audience, an American Latin audience. So good on her. 5 seasons of Jane the Virgin.
We've also got a couple from Warner Brothers here. The complete final and 7th season of Strike Back from Cinemax. Strike Back, One Last Shot. I don't really understand why this managed to survive as long as it did, but it's a little bit like Homeland meets, I don't know, the Americans. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, this one deals with bioweapons and Albanian mafia, and it always felt like a little bit of a stretch to me. But it's like once all these shows that were sort of born out of the War on Terror, and that includes Homeland, and that includes 24. All these shows that kind of came of age in that moment, and Strike Back. I think Strike Back is the one that feels the longest in the tooth. I don't know. Call me crazy.
Yeah.
And then the third season of Taz-Mania, which is the animated Tasmanian Devil show. I mention this only because my daughter recently discovered Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
She was always resistant to it because they're not on Disney Plus, and she can only watch things that are on Disney Plus. Slowly, she's expanding her horizons. You know, like right now, the daily thing is she wants to know who all the X-Men are and how old are they. And mind you, obviously, given the X-Men films, given that half of them take place now and or recently, and half of them take place, 30 years before, I'm saying, well, that's kind of complicated because, we'll look up how old are the actors. Well, honey, that doesn't really matter. Like Hugh Jackman's character was born in 1832, so how old he is doesn't correspond. I can't have it anyway. But she's also discovered Looney Tunes. She loves them. She's memorized all Looney Tunes characters. I had to buy Looney Tunes books so she can look at the map of Bugs Bunny's house under the ground and where he has his kitchen and his holes. It's nuts. And she loves Tasmanian Devil. And who doesn't? Taz is fantastic. So they gave Taz his own show. It's in its third season. It's not like classic Looney Tunes, but you know what? They really do find a lot of fun things to do with Taz. Especially when it gets around Christmas. It's really fun stuff. Hotel Taz-Mania. There's a lot of really fun, silly stuff in here, and it's a good show for kids. The complete third season of Taz-Mania.
Wow. SEAL Team, dude, is into season 3 here.
Isn't that crazy?
This is what's crazy about it. So David Bonares, right? The third season of SEAL Team. David Bonares, like Henry Winkler and like the guy that played MacGyver, are these guys who are among the richest people in Hollywood
on TV.
Because they've been on television for 25 years. Even before this, but you first started really paying attention to David Bonares in that series Buffy the Vampire Slayer, where he played Angel.
Yep. Then he did Angel.
And then he did the series Angel.
And then he did Bones.
And then he did Bones, which ran something like 8 or 9 seasons. So he has been constantly on television for the last 20 plus years. In series in which he was either a co-lead or the lead of, and an executive producer of. These are the sort of careers. But we think about the most powerful people. We think about Shonda Rhimes. We think about when we think about the most powerful people in Hollywood and television. No, it's the guy from SEAL Team season 3.
I know.
And Bones and Angel and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and that's Henry Winkler. Henry Winkler is like an executive extraordinaire. That new MacGyver, that's him too. The old MacGyver, that's him too. All the way back to the Fonz. And this guy. Anyway, SEAL Team, third season, and still going strong.
Also got The Terror, Infamy, the complete second season on AMC. This is really, really a very interesting show because it's a horror anthology, but in this case, it goes to the internment camps, the Japanese internment camps from World War II, and uses that as its backdrop. And that's pretty gutsy because the internment camps are their own bit of horror if you tell it straight. To do that, it took a long time before people started doing anything legitimate with World War II films. Like it's still right on the edge with the X-Men movies, the fact that Magneto is a Holocaust survivor. That's like you're right on the edge there of trivializing the Holocaust. So you got to be very, very careful. And so that's what they do with Terror Infamy. They take the internment camp scenario and they make that the backdrop for horror anthology. Terminal Island, right here in Southern California, and it pretty much works. It pretty much works. Because they're doing it in a really allegorical way. It is beautifully shot. George Takei is fantastic on this. Some might not realize that George Takei also recently wrote a graphic novel about a lot of this similar kind of stuff. So really, really terrific. The Terror Infamy.
George's family,
second
of course.
season.
George's family, of course, was interned.
Were interned. Yes, they were.
Were interned.
Yep.
So it makes a big difference, though, when you have those sort of connections to
In fact, I think he was born in Manzanar.
Wow.
I believe he was. Yeah.
Absolutely astounding stuff, man. Interesting.
Idiomatic season 1. This is also from Sundance Now. This is okay. This is it's a Finnish show. This may be the first show from Finland that I think we've ever actually talked about on the show.
Mm.
I didn't realize they had enough people or actors to make original movies. I'm kidding. It's a joke. Finland. It's cold. It's sparsely populated. It's a joke. They make some great movies there. The Karsmakis, and
Yes.
Finland. If you've ever seen Talvisoda, Finland has some really great talent. So it's not a surprise that they would have a really interesting TV show. It's a little quirky though.
Yeah.
The Finns have a real quirky sense of humor. When it works for me, it's like the Leningrad Cowboys, Finnish, pop band that the Aki Kaurismäki made movies about some years ago. I saw them live at the Cannes Film Festival in the early '90s. Loved the Leningrad Cowboys.
Yeah.
So there's a quirkiness to their comedy that kind of translates here, but still the show is a little bit quirky for me. It's about a Laplander and a Swedish woman, and they basically are it's sort of an odd couple arrangement. It's just quirky. It's just unusual people, and I think maybe if I understood the language a little better and I wasn't reading the subtitles, it would, I might get the jokes. But anyway, give it a shot. Idiomatic season 1 from Sundance Now. Did you watch The Sinner?
No, I don't know that one. Oh,
so Jessica Biel produces this.
Oh yeah.
It's just finished season 3. Bill Pullman and Matt Bomer, and Bill Pullman really just kind of nails it. It's a cop show. Pullman plays a detective, and he's trying to. It's just a New York cop thing. I can't. It's a little bit Real Detective, tiny bit Real Detective.
It's season 4 I see here.
Yeah, it's starting season 4. It's pretty moody and really well done. I'm very, Jessica Biel kind of like, all right, producing good.
Yeah.
Good on you. It's refreshing to me whenever I see an actress, especially, become a producer and say, you know what, I'm just going to produce. Why don't I just produce a cop thing that's really muscular with 2 men? It's like, well, that's great, because normally the stereotype is, oh, she's going to do something for women.
Yeah,
look, like,
no. She, particularly Jessica Biel, who's always been a bit of an action kind of, and it's as I can see, this is a bit of a drama. But yeah, love to see that. Love to see that.
It's really very interesting. So I'm really curious to see where they take it in the 4th season. Matt Bomer, of course, is great. I used to always hope that Matt Bomer would become Batman because he has such a great Bruce Wayne look to him. But
I love most about Matt Bomer.
Huh?
No, I love most about Matt Bomer.
Huh?
He's from St. Louis.
Oh, is he really?
He's a St. Louis boy. I love my St. Him, John Hamm, Scott Bakula, Kathleen Turner. We sent a whole lot of them out in the 80s.
I love that. Oh, that's great. Well, our last 2 here, we've got Doris Kearns Goodwin's History Channel production of Washington, which is fine. It's too long. It's about 5 hours long. It obviously wants to really give the story of Washington the complete Doris Kearns Goodwin scholarly presidential treatment. It is basically a documentary, a docudrama series. I just wish it had the panache of, say, a Ken Burns kind of production. I wish it had that kind of energy to it. It doesn't necessarily. It's not bad. There's a lot of interesting voices on here. Clinton and Colin Powell, all kind of weigh in. Could be better. Should be better. Washington, much more interesting figure than they really allow for, even in 5 hours. And the last one, Poetry in America, season 2, which is wonderful. America has such a great, rich history of poetry. So many different communities, native and immigrant, and different periods and different regions to the country, and it just you can really understand America and its history and its richness through its poetry.
I love some of the voices in this, including the ones you don't expect. Shaquille O'Neal, Bono, Nas,
Stephen Sondheim.
And I don't know why, Pal Gasol from I don't know, and just Frank Gehry, Herbie Hancock, just but all of these voices talking about poetry, the poetry that influenced them, the poetry that they still can quote from heart. know by heart. It's just, it's an amazing thing.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Now, poetry is, it's amazing whenever a great poem finds a new context. That's the thing that's always bracing to me is a poem written, say, 300, 400, 500 years ago or 150 years ago that suddenly is meaningful all over again. It's the commonality of the human experience. We learn from that, and it's a beautiful thing. All right, Tim, that's it. We're good.
That was fun. That was a fun one, Wade. I enjoyed talking about all that TV of yore.
Good stuff. Yeah. And so remember, all gods at DigiGods.com, gods at CineGods.com. We'll catch you guys in a week or two.